but it's all about the amount. Too much salt is very bad. The wrong type of salt is very bad. Your iodized salts have been chemically processed and are not good for your body. They're not natural. Okay. So we talked about adding a little bit of salt into your water, and you can do this in your garden as well. Okay. But mainly you're going to be doing that as a foliar spray. So I know that there's a lot of different methods out there to spray your plants. You have pump sprayers. You can just have like a little, one of those little containers that you spray. Um, those are obviously, if you're doing house plants, would be a lot easier to try to do your garden. You can get sprayers that go onto a quad. You can use that sprayer if you have a garden tractor. You can attach a cart to the back, load in that 25-gallon tank, and you can use that for spraying. That's basically what I have. I designed a little trailer and a system where I can cover 6 feet, and I do my yard with that. The reason that I'm talking about that is I have one area in my property that's a lot lower than the rest of my property. So it gathered water. For years, I had problems with it gathering water. Over 2-year period, I sprayed that area just with basically worm castings in water. So I took the worm castings, I milked them, I soaked them in a 5-gallon bucket to get out the biology off the worm castings, and I sprayed that onto this area. Within a year, you could see a difference, and in 2 years, it hardly holds water anymore. Why? The biology has went down into that structure, and it has opened that structure up so that the water penetrates instead of just being held there, because I have a heavy clay soil, and it penetrates down. So I'm refreshing my aquifer on my property by doing that. So I mentioned yesterday that if you have a property, you can actually hire companies that'll come out with drones. They'll fly around your property, and they can actually tell you the topographical layout of your property, which is highest, which is lowest. And if you have the ability, and you need enough land, of course, you're not going to do it in the city, but you can find out where you're a little bit higher and lower. You can create swales, okay, to help guide water and keep water onto your property. What you want is to fill up your own property with water. Once your soil structure is full of that water, then it just keeps penetrating down, down, and down, and you're refilling everybody's aquifer and property in your area. And this is what we want to do to help the entire planet, okay? Now, one of the other methods is, say you have a crossing on your property, and you have a pipe going across. You can dig pits on each end, which will actually help to capture silt. And if you watched yesterday's show when we were talking about building your soil, we talked about the necessary or the need for silt, sand, silt, clay, and organic material. So this is a way you can actually grab your own silt, is by digging this pit. And you can literally do this in a creek. Okay, you can build a pit inside of the creek, and as the water flows by, it'll actually help to settle out the particles in the water flow, and then you can dig that out, and you have silt. Now, if you're like I live at the edge of a town, all the water from the town actually flows down to me through a little creek that I have. But all the chemicals that are used in the town and by the people that live in the town, they're going to be swept off in that water and run down. They run down past my property. So I will not use that water. I would not use that silt because it would be harmful to what I'm trying to do because of the chemicals, etc., that are in it. But if you have, excuse me, a clean water source flowing, then you can collect that silt. So probably about 3 weeks ago, somebody was mentioning that someone close to them has a pond, and they had come in and they had cleaned out the pond of all the silt, okay, and just piled it there, and they were asking if they could use it. Hey, Hank, and the same thing is, where is that creek flowing through? Is it coming through an area where there's a lot of chemical usage? You're not necessarily going to want to use that silt before you put it into a compost pile. Okay, so if you add it into a compost pile and allow the biology to chew through those chemicals, because guys, the biology breaks everything down to a molecular level, to the molecules themselves. And that's what you want, because you can take a molecule of glyphosate, and the biology, as long as you have the right biology, can take that molecule and break it apart, and then it's no longer glyphosate. It's the components that made up glyphosate, but being broken apart, they are not going to damage things the way that glyphosate would damage. So if you have a questionable silt, run it through your compost pile. Okay, that's the perfect way to take this stuff out, to break it down and to make it good for your property. Now, if you're, one of these people that are growing cannabis, especially commercial, you're being tested, you're not going to be using that. You're going to be finding sources that are pure, so you don't have to worry. But for your average gardener, you're not going to be worrying about this. So one of the other places that you can get that muck is a slough, a backwater. Hey, David, a backwater of a creek or a river where it's piling up. You can go out and you can get this material and add it to your garden, add it to your lawn. Like, guys, if you have a lawn that's not doing very well, one of the things you can do is, get some sand and spread out the sand, a thin layer, rake it in so the grass comes through. You're supplying the necessary building blocks in your lawn for the biology to break down to make your grass grow that much nicer, fuller, and more vibrant. Okay. If you have low spots on your lawn, that's a great way to get rid of low spots as well, is to use the sand method. Also, once you put the sand down, spray it with biology. That way you have that biology to break that material down and feed your biology that's growing your grass. Hey, Sherry, one of the other things, if it comes back into my brain, yeah, it's gone.